Welcome to Newsmax TV. I'm Kathleen Walter. Joining us is a very special guest, Arnaud de Borchgrave, Newsmax correspondent and former member of the Newsmax Board of Directors. Mr. de Borchgrave is also editor-at-large for the Washington Times and the United Press International. He is also the director and senior advisor of the Transnational Threats Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies. He joins us now via the phone. Welcome back to Newsmax TV, Arnaud.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Big story today. A jury has cleared accused African embassy bomber Ahmed Gilani of all but one charge in the attacks. What effect will this have on the Obama administration's plans to try accused terrorists in civilian courts rather than military tribunals?
Well, it obviously indicates that justice cannot be carried out in civilian courts and that it'll have to be done by military courts. If someone who's clearly guilty is rendered innocent, imagine where that leads us, with all sorts of people involved with Al-Qaeda and its associated movements begin to be released under a civilian court. Then we're just sending them right back in to do the same work against us.
Where does President Obama go from here?
Well, he's in serious trouble, as we know. The elections have certainly put him at a disadvantage on all fronts. He's no longer the magician who did the famous Berlin talk as he was running for election, and the Cairo talk in June of last year, which were, they were knockouts. These were real, how should I put it? He was winning one ball game after another, and now he's losing one after another. People have forgotten about the Cairo speech and forgotten about the Berlin speech, and now he's at NATO trying to reboot the North Atlantic Alliance, or as we would say in computer parlance, NATO 2.0, reboot or delete. As you know, this alliance was formed against the Soviet Union and was very successful. And now it really doesn't seem to have much of a purpose, except what's happening in Afghanistan, which is not good news. It's a little difficult to predict what's going to happen in Afghanistan, but it doesn't look good for the United States. It doesn't look good for our allies. Everybody's looking for a way out. On the other hand, nobody wants to turn the country over to the Taliban.
President Obama, after returning from his 10-day trip through Asia, is in Lisbon for the weekend for a NATO summit on Afghanistan. Would a new plan by the Obama administration to end combat operations by 2014 and would a move to shift more responsibility to the Afghans over the next 18 to 24 months, do you think that would work?
I think no. It's totally ludicrous. There's no way it could work. But on the other hand, everybody wants out. A successful effort to create effective Afghan forces, which is the key to the whole situation, particularly forces that can largely replace the role of U.S. and allied forces, must, it seems to me, overcome a legacy of more than 8 years of critical failures in both force development and training. And in the broader course of the U.S. effort in Afghanistan, such an effort must also be shaped as part of an integrated civil-military mission, and not treated simply as an exercise in generating more Afghan military and police forces. And as you know, most people want out. The Brits would like to leave too. They're the last fighting force besides the U.S. forces. So we've now got about 130,000 troops that are allowed to conduct offensive operations. All the others are sort of confined to their positions and can only fire if fired upon. And everybody wants to come home.
Okay, to start, the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaty. President Obama needs 8 Republican voters for ratification during the lame duck session of Congress. He says it's imperative for national security, but some Republicans are questioning whether it's something that should be moved on right now and are questioning how they'll move on it. What are the implications for U.S. relations with Russia and also for U.S. national security if this treaty isn't ratified?
Well, it seems to me that what Senator Kyle is doing is very, very dangerous, because all sorts of other things that are contingent on a successful reset of the relations with Russia, which of course include nuclear weapons. To understand what's at stake, one has to go, of course, to Iran. and to the defensive network of anti-missile missiles that we want to install around Iran. Russia is now aboard. We seem to be on the same wavelength vis-a-vis Iran and their secret nuclear program. The Russians have agreed to not sell them the anti-aircraft SAM missiles that were already in the works. That's been canceled by the Russians. So a lot is at stake besides the nuclear arms agreement between the United States and Russia. And what we were doing with Russia, it'll take years, of course, to implement, and there's absolutely no harm in ratifying that now in order to obtain Russian assistance in the much more important problem right now of Iran.
Okay. Well, Arnaud, since you and I last talked, the Republicans won the House, and they now wield greater influence in the Senate. As a consequence, do you see President Obama changing his seemingly non-sympathetic stance toward Israel?
Yes, he's obviously has to do that. AIPAC is applying tremendous pressure. I mean, the most incredible thing that's happened in the past few days is that we seem to be working out an agreement with Israel whereby they would extend the 90-day moratorium on further building in the settlements that they already have, in exchange for which they'd get about $3 billion of additional assistance, mostly military assistance, and some additional F-35 fighter jets. And that's just done for another 90-day moratorium. So it's caused quite a few chuckles in Washington.
So would the U.S. be more supportive of a strike by Israel against Iran, and does the military option remain on the table for the U.S.?
I think the military option is very much on the table for the U.S. I just attended a lunch in Washington with the Turkish ambassador where all of this was discussed. What everybody fears the most is if there's a military strike against Iran, whether done by Israel or the United States or by both, that Iran will answer with formidable asymmetrical retaliatory capabilities that will go up and down the entire Persian Gulf, all the way from Fifth Fleet headquarters in Bahrain up to the largest oil terminal in the world. All of this is just within a few miles of Iran's missile capability. That plus the fact that, as I just said, they have all sorts of other ways of reacting, whether it's Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, and Hezbollah has an arm that extends quite far around the world, given the fact that they once blew up the Israeli embassy in Rio, as I recall, in Buenos Aires.
Arnaud, let's turn to money news. A renewed flare-up of Europe's sovereign debt crisis is roiling U.S. markets, and some experts say this is counteracting the Federal Reserve's $600 billion stimulus program. What is your take on this?
Well, my take is that we're in serious economic trouble, and that we're on the verge of perhaps sinking a little lower, hopefully not. I am not a specialist in what the Federal Reserve should do or not do, but everybody has a very uncomfortable feeling all over the country, as I'm sure you all realize. And I think it's all unpredictable given the fact that, one, we have a dysfunctional government, two, we have a dysfunctional Congress, and that is recognized all over the world. It's pretty unpredictable what's going to happen in this new Congress.
Okay, rescuing Ireland may no longer be enough, as many experts fear that Portugal could be next for a bailout. Greece has also admitted its 2009 budget deficit was much worse than first thought. Do you think that Portugal will be next to fall, and what other European countries might need help down the road?
Well, everybody's questioning, of course, how far this monetary union can continue, given the fact that they don't have the same controls over the euro that we have over the dollar. So it's all unpredictable, too. Ireland almost brought the whole thing down. Greece almost brought the whole thing down. Now it's Portugal. And again, impossible to forecast how it's going to turn out. They'll obviously go the extra mile to make sure that the euro union does not collapse. On the other hand, the Germans are getting pretty fed up. They can get along fine without any of the other Europeans and go back to their own Deutschmark currency.
How do you think we can keep a European debt contagion from infecting the U.S.?
Very, very difficult, given the fact that we're all part of the same economic trading system. It's a one-world situation without being a one-world situation. There's no one taking global decisions. There are independent decisions being taken by the European Union, by the United States, and there are major powers coming up like Brazil and India and China.
Now, many high-profile Republican economists have joined Sarah Palin in urging Fed Chairman Ben Bernanke to cease and desist with the Fed's $600 billion bond buying plan. Do you think such that such pleas will change Bernanke's mind?
I think there again, you're dealing with such speculation that it's impossible to forecast. I remember saying to Bernanke in September of 2007 on the subprime mortgage mess that was just beginning to unfold. I had just returned from Europe and forecast something terrible was going to happen, and it was going to impact the whole world. And I was sitting next to him at dinner. I mentioned what I'd just written and who I'd talked to in Europe, several key bankers in Switzerland, UK, and France. And he said to me, quote, "The worst is now over," unquote. And that was just the beginning of the crisis, not the end.
All right. Arnaud de Borchgrave, thank you so much for joining us. As always, we appreciate your insight.
Take care. Thanks a lot, Kathleen.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.